Um, the retconning of a character trait or backstory, can that be a good thing or is it usually a bad thing?
Normally, it's not well received at first, but it can be a good thing if the concept is used to expand upon something or give it more detail.
No,
I'm trying to think of a good one that's not really a spoiler.
the only time I've seen people enjoy retcon is like Sonic 06. People really hated that game and they're like, I wish it never happened. So like when the company doesn't acknowledge it, they're fine with the retcon. But like we were even talking about with Naruto, it's just like it feels like people retcon the fact that
Yeah.
Naruto wasn't supposed to have friends. So like people always assume that Shikamaru is his friend. And it's just like, huh? So is it because of it was later written to us about it, or is it because it was just something that we just like input, like what's it called, the Mandela effect?
The Mandela effect, I don't think the Mandela effect applies to this phenomenon. I think it's more just 14, 15 years later, the audience has grown to a certain point where you can kind of give them certain details and they'll just say, yeah, that's totally what happens.
Yeah, we don't have to look it up. Not like it's
Or just like,
stairs.
I'm not going to rewatch the series from the very beginning to see if you're wrong. Yeah, I remember it being kind of like that.
So you haven't thought of one that was a good retcon?
There are some good ones. It's just I can't think of any that aren't recent. That would be spoilers. I'm trying to. I know some retcons in Mistborn, which is a Brandon Sanderson novel. I know of some retcons in Sonic and Shadow Generations that I feel like are too soon to discuss. I guess I'll give this one because I've seen this one recently. Star Wars Rogue One. I finally watched it last week.
Oh snap! So we can talk about it now.
I feel like I could talk about this because it's 8 years old. If you haven't seen Rogue One, anyway, we watched Rogue One, where was it Galen Erso? He intentionally created a weak point in the Death Star where if it is blasted with any sort of energy weapon, the Death Star basically explodes. Then we watched A New Hope the next morning. He just goes straight into 1977, straight from 2016. And we got to the point where they were discussing the plan to blow up the Death Star. And they said something like, I want to make sure I remember how they said this. The Empire is not aware of this one flaw, this one exhaust port, where if we launch a proton bomb? I forgot the name of the projectile into this exhaust that it can detonate the Death Star. And I turned to my friend. I said, "They don't know about it, but they knew that there was a deficiency installed in the Death Star's plans by Galen Erso in Rogue One." And I think he explained it to me that they know that it is an intentional flaw, but they don't know that the the catastrophic disaster that will happen if that flaw is exploited. They know. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I say this correctly. I'm retconning what I'm saying about this retcon.
Retcon.
Retcon! My friend said they know that a weakness has been installed into the Death Star, but they don't know what it is. They know that this exhaust port is a weak spot in the Death Star, but they don't know the consequences of this weakness. They don't deem it as risky. They don't deem it as a risk enough to have it guarded, I think was how he put it. It's like, I can understand that. They know that it's a weakness, but they don't know it's that weakness, that catastrophic weakness. So they deemed it as not important enough to guard. I can see that. But I had to really think, did they, in Rogue One, make it a sustainable retcon where in watching A New Hope, it doesn't break something? And I think that was a good retcon because that expanded upon more detail in an older work that didn't do a disservice to the older work. I felt like it was very well done there.
Oh, since you finally watched Rogue One again, do you think the girl came off as a Mary Sue, or do you think she was developed?
I can see the argument both ways. Not like Rey. Rey is a
No.
Mary Sue through and through.
Okay.
But Jyn Erso, she did have to grow to trust. She had to learn to trust people. She had to come to terms with her past. She got to... I'm trying not to spoil too much about the plot.
Oh, I'll go spoil it.
Okay. Well, she got to have that one moment with her dad after, I think, 15 years apart that I think changed her in a way that makes the second half of the movie feel more natural for her character and how she developed. She didn't go from drastic this side of the coin to the other, this side of the spectrum to the other. It's just she did change. She didn't stay completely static throughout the entire movie. And I think that alone, in that she needed help to change, she didn't just change because she needed to, kind of disqualifies her from being a Mary Sue. She needed help. She didn't do everything herself. She was saved by other people, helped by other people, changed by other people, and she just didn't pick up on everything immediately, perfectly, with a background that doesn't justify the skill level that she was given in the narrative.
Well, I think it also helps that she only has one movie compared to Rey.
That is true. That is true.
Without spoiling, but I think because I think what you just said is essentially what is Nami in like the live action One Piece, which a lot of people like Nami for, because you know she needed help. She was closed off at first, but you know later on tries to trust people and then asks for help, as you mentioned. And it's just like she doesn't have all the abilities like all the other characters have in that story. So it's just like she can't do it all. So like, you know, if whether it's a girl or a guy, if they could do it all, it's like, why am I watching? What is going to be the threat? Like, how is it that they might fail? Like, where's the suspense in it, I guess?
Yeah, I could see that.
So, how come you think she might lean into the Mary Sue?
How do I think that Jyn Erso could lean into the Mary Sue?
Yeah, because you said it could go both ways.
I'm trying to think of some good arguments to play devil's advocate on if she was a Mary Sue. I would say she never really flat out failed in anything that I can remember. She had mishaps, yes, but ultimately the goal was succeeded.
I mean,
though not entirely by her own hand.
I mean, I would say the ending's a little bit of fail.
I mean, it kind of had to happen. But see, that's the trait of the Mary Sue, is that when they fail, it's not allowed to be their fault.
Uh-huh.
That failure is not her fault.
Okay, I see. You're like,
what was that thing? What was that thing in Wonder Woman? I haven't seen either of the Wonder Womans with Gal Gadot. I think I was told that the summary of the beginning of Wonder Woman 2 was that she failed in some contest, but the reason that she failed was not because she was bad, but because she was unfairly disqualified for some sort of technicality, and it made it not her fault.
Okay, I know where that's going. So like, cause I remember seeing that part. Well, I saw the first one. The first one wasn't bad, honestly. I think the first one didn't have that problem as much as the second one suffered from. But you didn't see them, so I can't really spoil that. But
Hey, you can talk about it. I don't know if I'll ever watch them.
Okay, well, it's been a while since I seen that one, but okay. In the first movie, she's new to the Earthland because she's an Amazon woman, right? You know her backstory. I'm not gonna explain that. So, like, she has to rely on other people's help and which is one of the things that they don't really need to rely on people's help. And then I know at the end part, it was something more so, because I think the first one got praised while the second one did not get praised. It got shunned. And then
That's what I remember.
yeah. And then I think it was she was afraid or something because the guy was really strong. Again, it's been years since I saw the first one, but I remember it being good. I could go back and be like, oh dang, this is actually trash, but I don't think it was. I think it was more so she needed the help of others for one, and then like she had to acknowledge like this is not the only thing that's gonna help me win this fight. She had to basically do something else in order to win the fight. Like she couldn't remain stagnant. So I think that's why it worked. But I'm not gonna go watch that movie because superhero movies are long, so I have to really have the desire. But if we're talking about like I think this is why one of the things I always talk about with my friends is just like, because I grew up with anime, and anime, even though it has this like pervy moments and whatnot, there are a lot of well-written female characters because it's usually like, characters in general. Oh dang, you haven't finished. You haven't finished Dragon Ball Super Z, but you're at the saga.
Go ahead.
You've seen Android 18 so far, right?
So far she's been absorbed into Perfect Cell.
Yeah, okay. So you've seen what she was. How was your impression of 18 so far?
18, so she's wildly different from Trunks' interpretation of the future that he lived.
Yes.
And how she is now, where kind of with 17 too is that in Trunks' future they're freaking heartless. Then in what's present day is they kind of, once Cell enters the picture, suddenly they kind of have a heart, even though they were kind of indiscriminately stealing, killing, Grand Theft Auto. It's a very weird point where when Cell enters the picture, suddenly they have a heart and they go from villains to kind of victims in a way, in a very strange way that I can't really describe. But the original question was, can you remind me of your original question?
How do you think she lands as a character? Because, well, you see two different sides of her so far, because you have the future her and the present her. So,
yeah,
how do you think she works as a female character so far?
As a female character,
Yeah.
I feel like the character... Well, I can't say the character could be male or female because Krillin seems to have a very high romantic interest in her, which inadvertently causes, serious mass hysteria and destruction because he's infatuated with this android, like Vegeta in his pride. But I feel like I like that she's not a girly girl. She doesn't play into being a girl. The character is a girl, and there's reason for the character to be a girl, but they don't lean into the character. What was the term that we used earlier? Hyper-femininity?
Oh yeah, that was the other comment. So hyper-feminism, because we have a whole different hyper-masculinism versus hyper-feminism.
Yeah. Because I used Yasuna Colin from Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive for another example, where the character is female. The character being female is used, so you can't just gender swap the character and it makes sense. But they don't use the gender of the character as a justification for things not earned. So far I see that with 18, where there is reason Android 18 is female. Android 18 does not succeed because she's female, but there's reason for her to be female from a narrative standpoint. And she doesn't gain inherent, unjustified, unearned merit because she's female.
Okay. I think because this actually works in comparison, because she's actually a twin to 17.
Right.
Do they differ? Their future selves don't really differ from each other, but do their present selves differ from each other?
As in their personalities, or
Yeah, because I do see small differences, but I don't know if you were able to pick up on them.
I might need to give that section a rewatch,
Okay.
because I know that Android 17 was much more keen to fight people, like Piccolo.
Yeah.
Android 17 was a lot more keen to fight Cell, and he celebrated prematurely when Tien Shinhan really just laid into Cell. Differences? Yes, there are differences. I can definitely see that Android 17 has more masculine traits in what's the term I'm looking for? Not competitiveness. That masculine urge to overcome your enemy and really put them in their place. He has that, and 17 is kind of in self-preservation. Not 17. 18 is in self-preservation mode, while 17 is like, let's get at that. Yeah, let's kick some. But differences are there, but being twins, they are very similar.
Okay, and then you have Bulma, who do you think she fits into the Mary Sue? Because I could see going both ways for her, but I feel like at the end of the day, she is still written, but some people could still say like she could be seen as hyper feminine. I don't know if she could really be seen, but like I could see if some people could have that argument. Like if this was in a different type of show.
I could see that. I think a lot of people would be drawn to the fact that she's extremely good with electronics, coding, being able to find the android's weakness within a few days of just pouring over some code in an off-screen delivery. I can see how that would be a Mary Sue trait, but I think her background in college does some legwork to justify her genius level intelligence. That, and she was raised by a doctor or a scientist who's got a degree in that sort of thing.
Yeah, because I was gonna say that, well, because you've seen Dragon Ball and most of Dragon Ball Z at this point. Her backstory is like she has a doctor, she's rich, like she has the opportunities to be intelligent, like, you know, like she could get the education she wants and whatnot. Like it's not gonna be hard for her to go and get it. But like she may be super smart, but she still has to rely on her friends because she's not strong. So she is, let's just say she's intelligent wise, but like at the end of the day, her what she gives to the group is gonna be in her brains, while the guys be given the bronze, I guess is the best way to put it, because this is like 80s shonen, so like like all the other characters, let me see, I guess Piccolo and Tien maybe, but like Goku is just like, he just wants to fight. Vegeta, he just wants to fight. So even though Vegeta is more on the higher scale, so Krillin is more of like an all-arounder. So I would say, like, how would you feel like Bulma fits the mode?
Oh man, I'm trying to really pick apart what you had there. Bulma does have a mean streak. She is competitive. She does like to overcome the obstacle, even though she whines about it all the freaking time.
Yeah. I didn't say she was perfect.
No, it's just, there are some stretches where Bulma really grinds my gears. Then there are some where she's pretty cool. She rises and falls and rises and falls, and I can never really place her in. I would rate Bulma here because it really varies depending on the arc.
It really does, though, especially in like
really
early Dragon Ball when she's a teenager, and it's just like, dang, you really get the teenager from her, because like Yamcha was girl crazy, but like he was fighting, while Bulma is guy crazy. But the thing is, like, it's like all she could do is like do the tech stuff, so like she's not gonna really have much to do fighting wise, so it's not like she's gonna have a training arc, and like it's not like they're gonna have like a whole programming arc. It's like, okay, learn how to code and whatnot. So she's just kind of relegated to like having her quirky moments or whatever moments they're gonna have her in this shonen. So
That is true. She is distinguished from the rest of the female cast. She does have her positive qualities and she does have her negative qualities. I feel like she does fit some tropes, but she's not by any means a redundant character in the narrative of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z.
mhm.
She fits a role that needs to be there.
Yeah. So I feel like her character could have been male, but like I feel like it's better that she was female. But like yeah. But it's hers, so like it's what, like she likes the female stuff. Like it's not like she tries to hide the fact that she's female. So like it's just
Right.
like, you know, it's just kind of like a plus one. But at the same time, she just has an attitude. you got either like the attitude or you hate the attitude. So,
Pretty much.
yeah.
She has feminine qualities and she's not afraid to use them. But
Exactly.
She's not going to lean in. She's not super girly girl. She
Mhm.
embraces feminine stuff. She's not a female for the sake of trying to push away everything female to be not female, which is
Mhm.
something that a lot of modern writing does.
Mhm.